Absolutely, a Shazam poof calling out, asking if numbers committee is watching. He says, "I'm too good. I have a hat trick. You can't stop me." Let's see. He's still down by a goal.
That's a bold move. Let's see how it plays out.
You're gonna transition into it.
Jamie with the long ball. That's going to be off the backboard. The Devil and the goalie. Enigma with the goal. That's going to be the dagger for sure. 20.
Over to Viglio from Judgmental. Viglio gets the first touch, can't get the second. Judgmental puts it into no man's land. Canadian Things there now with a lot of boost to work with. Air dribble towards it. Canadian Things with the game winner.
Ray waiting for it. Ball out in no man's land. Gets up. Gets the extra touch. Throws it through. Oh my gosh. Ray with the LOB, putting in work like that's his JOB, and I cannot believe that is a one-man wrecking ball.
Watch out, Beck's really proven to be a game changer in this best of 7 here. A shot maybe coming down from Nautical, not able to read that touch from DQ though, and off, trying to get another touch. DQ dumps it down. Don't forget, this is match.
Welcome back to another exciting week of the pre-jump. We are into week 4. And just to get you up to speed here, on the desk with us as a guest tonight, we've got Cali Chromatic returning for the week. We've got myself and Mr. T-Sam below me. And for the first time ever, our newest full-time member, we've got Roberts, 7977, GM of the Cosmos. Roberts, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, it's good to be here. As you said, my name is Rob, or Robert S7977. I've been playing Rocket League since Season 1. Started out on the Xbox, switched over to PC pretty recently. Been in RSC since Season 11. Won Vet MVP, been hard stuck Elite ever since. That's been fun. And actually this season, my college won a JUCO national title. So doing big things in Rocket League. Excited to start.
Look at this guy.
Look at this guy being actually good at the game. Who does that?
I just know the right people.
Hey, man, you got to know the right people, just like knowing our guest tonight, Cali Chromatic here. Cali actually, not even half an hour ago, had probably one of the biggest highlights of the season here, getting engaged.
Shout out Callie.
Just try not to cry about it again. We're good. Everything's fine.
A few tears are okay.
Yeah,
That's gotta be
not gonna happen.
That's got to be clip of the week. We need to be able to analyze him getting down on one knee at that wrist action as he brings the ring up.
Just a little bit of that, you know. Razor.
Hey, congratulations.
I still made it here. That's all I'm gonna say.
I was gonna say he didn't miss a meeting. He didn't miss
No, I
the
did
podcast. So absolute stud right there. Now, I do want to say before we get moving in too far into the podcast, we do also have an additional role that we kind of covered a little bit in the announcements. We have our the People's Champ with me on display and Humdigger. Shout out to both of them there. They are going to be kind of like a hybrid role between our mods and also at the same time kind of fill-in casters in case something happens and one of us is sick or anything's going on that really prevents us from being here. But now that we've got that out of the way, we got our shout out to our 3 newest members of the podcast community. Let's go ahead and transition first into really some free agency moves here. We've got our Mr. T-Sant here. You've got to have some insight.
Some insight on free agency moves. Well, you know, we were supposed to do that last week or 2 weeks ago. Lost Power. That was super fun. But, well, I don't know, boss. Where do you want to start? There's a lot of divisions in the RC. Where's somewhere we should start off, huh?
Well, I mean, obviously we had some big moves, some people moving up and down a little bit more than really I was expecting with so many people just finding themselves in a new tier. I think probably the middle would be a good place to start. Maybe Chally, Rival, or Vet.
Well, we'll start with Rival since that's the one spot I actually know anything about in this league. There's a lot of good moves out there, you know. Our team over here at the Syndicate bringing up the Challenger overall MVP, AO Chill. Cracked at the game, better than me. Wish I was as good as him. Don't know what he was doing down in Challenger. A big loss, Italian Battalion losing. I think they lost 3 of their 4 championship players. All 4 actually Aethys not playing this season. The other 3 all moved up to Vet. filling that huge gap, is definitely going to be difficult. And speaking of players that moving out of rival, Boss, you may be familiar with this. Couple of players double promoed into elite, and you were one
Yeah.
of them. How's that felt for you so far?
It's been solid. Rob, how have we been doing this last game night?
Gotta say, looking pretty solid over there. Doing pretty well for a double promo, if I could say so myself.
Thank you. Now the as far as I've heard, the 3 double promos between myself, uh Justice, formerly known as Cloudy, and not Kaido, have all been doing pretty decent. Rob, you've got to have some good insight over there for Cloudy, since Cloudy's on your team, right?
Absolutely. He's been adapting to the pace phenomenally. He's looking good. Put us in a really difficult situation with roster building by double promoing, but I couldn't afford to let him go. Ceiling's too high, and once he really gets a foot at this level, he has a serious chance to dominate, just like he did in Rival.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Man, we got a bunch of quiet people today. Come on, guys. It's the best part about talking about it. It's everybody's favorite part. Getting absolutely messed with numbers, getting shoved around in different tiers.
Listen,
Come on, man.
Yo, look,
I don't
building
know
my
anything about
rival
rival.
team.
I don't know anything
Building
about
my
rival.
rival team. I remember going through combines, 10, 12 targets. Every single one of them got moved up into vet, and one went up into elite or two. I think 1 or 2 went up into elite. It definitely made building the team difficult. It's a good thing we filled it mostly with in-house guys. That made it a little easier, but those numbers guys don't make life difficult
No.
in
they do
building
not.
a team. Not at all.
No, I think our rival team was already pretty much set up before the season, but the moving up tiers was pretty much amateur through Chally, just people moving up. As soon as you want to sign them, they would just
Yep.
go to the next tier.
And that's
Great.
gotta be pretty tough, right? So with making final cuts just occurred. We just came out of Wednesday not too long ago with the final preseason matches being done. Was it Tuesday 9:59, right? That's when final cuts had to be made.
Yeah.
Everybody. So
Yes.
Callie, for your team at least, what's that look like? What's that feel like knowing that you have to narrow down your team? Or were you already at 4 people when final cuts?
My team was already at 4. We basically got rid of all of the draft picks because we didn't need them. Usually, what
Jeez.
I do whenever it comes down to the final cut, I have the players send DMs to me, basically saying who they think the final 4 should be, and then I use kind of their input because I don't know everything watching from a different team or whatever. So they send me their 4, and then we kind of make cuts, maybe depending on that, or if I think something should be changed, then I'll do that. But it's never easy, even though they may have only been on the franchise for a week. It's not an easy cut to make, and it's my least favorite message to send.
Hey, totally understandable. I did not have the easiest cut. I had a player. Shout out to Mr. Cowtooth, fantastic person and fantastic Chally player. Just we couldn't quite get the team to mesh in the way we wanted it to with everybody that we had targeted in the draft. But Cowtooth honestly made it super easy with taking it just like a champ. Super excited, asked a
Yeah.
couple questions about free agency, but really before they even hit free agency, they were already getting looked at. So thankfully that one went pretty good for me. But speaking of tougher cuts, Mr. Robert, you made a pretty tough cut recently, didn't you? In your elite
I
team?
did. I did. I had to let go one of my best friends in RSC. His name's Cookie.
Ooh.
Yep. Just the way when it comes to building teams, not to get ahead of ourselves, I suppose, but when it comes to building teams, there's specific roles that I believe kind of need to be filled, right? You have
Okay.
your mechie players, your offensive creators, you have the guys who hold it down at the back, you have your flex players who do a little bit of everything. And I think that sometimes with the way that numbers work, you're forced to choose between players who they might be better, but they may not fit the mold of your roster. And that can put you in very difficult situations. And that's where I think maturity and communication from both parties are very important because it needs to be understood that you're not saying that you don't want to play with them, right? You're not saying
Yeah.
that they don't deserve to be on a roster or they're not an incredible player. But sometimes it can be a little bit rough around the edges if that's not there.
I was gonna say, if it makes anybody feel any better, my fiance was a free agent this season, and I couldn't sign him for almost that exact same reason.
That's funny.
Jeez, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, felt a
Hey,
little bad about that one.
It's tough cutting somebody you know, and
Yeah.
I'm really glad for my Chally team that Dondo, somebody that I've known for 4 some odd years now, reached out and said, "Hey, team's not really meshing super well. Are you fine cutting me?" Because I'm sitting there going, "My God, did I dodge a bullet?" Because I don't know if I could have brought myself to say, "Hey, man, it's not working. Like, we got to move on." You know what I mean? So, like, I totally understand that thought process.
I think players can have individual talent, but it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe in the lower tiers it matters a little bit more, but once you start getting up there, it all depends on the team. One player can't carry a team, especially not in threes.
Hmm.
It just doesn't.
And I mean, it's all about that. It's all about that IQ at the end of the day, right? Two of the best players of all time, Turbo K-Dop, they're not exactly known for their mechanics, to say the least. Just game sense, hey,
Still way
it's not
better
always
than me.
about skill.
For sure, for sure. I mean, a lot of it's about vibes. It's you got to know
Yeah.
like who's going to fit together, and quite frankly, you don't know that until preseason hits, until you have the team ready and going together.
You can have
Absolutely.
four incredibly talented players who actually may possibly play well together, but if they don't get along, it's not going to work. And I've had that happen one too many times.
I felt that on my elite team, I had 5 players who were in the top half of the tier in terms of skill. As a hard stuck elite player, I know the tier very well. um,
Fair?
and I got 5 guys on my roster who are all incredible, and like double promos are tough, man. Unpredictable, puts you in a rough spot, and sometimes makes you have to make decisions you don't want to make.
Oh, for sure. But I think that's the nice point is like I feel like first cuts are a little bit easier because you know, right? You know pretty quickly who's not meshing.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's why final cuts are so much worse, is because you've already narrowed it down to the cream of the crop, to the people that you feel could make the team, and quite frankly, it's not fun.
Mhm.
I think another really interesting thing about RSC is so they guarantee that everyone gets drafted, right? And in a situation like Callie, you mentioned with your rival team, where you have 4 players that you're planning on going into the season with, my rival team was the same way. In my elite team, I was planning on going in with the same 4 as last season before the double promo, right? But you start out with 5 or 6 picks in every single tier, and it can force very interesting situations where you would rather you're drafting somebody knowing that there's a pretty high chance you're going to cut them if you haven't been able to trade away that draft pick.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting part of being a GM, um, trying to navigate trading those picks and thinking about how that can actually impact not having to cut somebody who you don't want to have to cut in the very near future.
I think it's happened to me, I think, once or twice where we've had a solid 4 that we thought we were going into the season with, but we did have that extra draft pick, and that extra pick ended up being better than one of
Hmm.
the players that we were planning on going into the season with.
Yeah.
So, you get them all hyped, they think they're going to be there, and then essentially you just have to send the message later on in the preseason, just sorry, you got outplayed a little bit, or it's just they meshed better. It goes had it both taken really well, and I've had it not taken. So
Yeah.
So, Rob, you've been a GM now for a little bit. Do you ever go into a situation trying to trade away as many picks as you can when you kind of already have your 4 set? And just
So
is how easy and or difficult is that?
So, one of the things that I love about being a GM in RSC is actually trading. That was a big plus for me getting into it. That was my favorite thing as an AGM. I have a very deep background in fantasy football. Shout out Fantasy Football State of Mind on Instagram. 55,000 followers. Used to write for them. Um, and so,
Weird flex, but okay.
hey man, it's a
like, all
segment to
right.
get to know me. You got to get to know me. But this is my favorite. It's interesting you asked about this because I love it. Trying to visualize, okay, if my needs are this pick in this round, how can I convert this value into this value? There is an equation that can almost always turn one pick into another if you approach it the right way, if you keep negotiations positive, you don't like lowball, you keep everything. There's a lot of ways to negotiate that are really, really fun, really, really positive. And the strategy that you have going into the season, the players that you think you're keeping, really, really does affect that.
For sure. For sure. You know, I
Trading is
think though. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Callie?
trading is stressful. It's like my least favorite part. I don't have fantasy football background or really any
Yeah.
background in this sort of stuff, so Hell Week opens up and it's just chaos.
I had the easiest time in the offseason. I reached out to a couple other AGMs and some other GMs to be like, "Hey,
Look at you.
what you looking for? What you want? How much how much you charge, and how much $5?"
Nobody ever tells me what they want. Oh,
I
the heck?
had a member on transactions committee tell me that I had the most 3-team trades this offseason.
Oh, he's getting
Just
complicated
saying.
with it out here. Okay.
God.
Okay,
No,
heard you,
just
heard you.
gotta do what you gotta do, you know?
I have to
Converting
give
value into value just gotta happen.
most of the credit goes to Ncreds for our trades, to be honest. He's a genius when it comes to that because he's been doing it for so long.
You don't have to give Ncreds credit. It's okay. You can take
No,
all
I
the
have
credit.
to.
It's fine.
He'll yell at me if I don't.
Oh, dude, I had the best trade experience of the entire offseason with Ncreds because I messaged him and I said, "Hey, what do you want for Buck? How much is Buck worth?" And he
Mm.
goes, "Not a chance, baby."
Mhm.
just,
Pretty much.
just immediately squashes that.
Yeah, no. That one's mine.
So you
Hey.
guys are lucky. Dr. Skinmilk said if I ever try to make a trade, he's going to immediately cut me from the franchise. So, I'm just a placeholder as AGM. I didn't even get a shot.
That's crazy.
Hey,
Um,
saves you some time.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, nothing. What?
No, I'm not even sure. But you know what? Honestly, we've been talking about making final cuts for a little bit. We kind of leapfrogged over it, and that's entirely my fault. I missed probably one of the only reoccurring segments we're going to be keeping for the entire season for sure. Let's go ahead and jump into our exclusive 8 clips of the
Gutter
week
Coast.
and
Gutter Coast.
cut. So that wraps up our exclusive 8 clips of the week for this week. As always, you'll have the eligibility to vote in our Discord underneath the poll section as long as you have the T-Sans little helper role. Last week, to wrap things up, we had a draw actually in our vote. We had Ncreds and not Zohan. So big round of applause, big shout out to both of them for getting the first ever reward for Clip of the Week. They've both been given a title that means absolutely nothing, and it's a different color. So congratulations, you two.
Yep. I don't know how Craig won that.
Okay, before we move on, I do want to know everyone's favorite goal, at least here on the board.
All of them were way more talent than I have.
She didn't pay attention.
No, he
I'll
did.
start.
He did the tornado spin up, and then he like flipped upside down, and then he double tapped it in. You know that one?
Oh, that's
On the night map?
good.
Shout
I
out
don't
Lilo.
remember.
Shout out Lilo.
Was Lilo?
I think
Yeah,
so.
you picked.
I do believe
Don't
so.
react like that.
Ah.
Lilo's great.
Oh, I love Lilo.
Mine had to be Slider. My teammate hitting a double flip reset, double tap. Call him a double machine. Does
I
nobody
mean, I
better.
can see why.
Obviously, and this is me being terrible. My favorite was end credits, or not end credits, snack time with the greatest editing I've seen in a while. I think he used dolly cam is what he called it. But that the tracker on the ball looked so crisp, even though the play was decent, but not like super great. The editing made it look just that much better.
Or is it the editing?
A little bit of both, probably.
Okay, fair.
Probably.
Clips, I wouldn't.
It's
that
hard not to
problem
give it
with.
some love to the
My
the
favorite
syndicate.
clip
Yeah.
was mine, but I couldn't submit it.
Well, of course you can't submit it. What do you mean?
Nah, I would rather have one of these guys take it over.
Hey, it's
Sounded
exclusive.
believable.
It's for everybody.
Listen, I have nothing.
Exclusive
nothing
eights for
going on.
everybody. They all start
Holy
with E.
cow.
Get some alliteration in there. Submit the clip next week, Rob. Come on now.
He
Yep,
did
The
submit
people
a
will love
he
it.
submitted a clip this week, and I said no. It's a way for our
That's crazy.
it's
Oh
a
my
way for our
gosh.
community to get some recognition for what they did. In a
The
sense that
tyranny
That's
here
true.
is crazy.
oh, we're trying to
He
give
said,
a
bro.
the tyranny. You're trying to create some elitist to where we can win the award.
The community doesn't vote for him.
No,
I
I
mean-
know. Rob's gonna be in the back room of his organization. Vote for me, or you're getting
Vote
your
for my
name's
clip
cut.
or you're cut.
That sounds like a good way to win. I respect it.
Exactly. Thank you.
What franchise
Value
has the
into
most people
value.
in it? About to go become a GM of whatever
I think it's
franchise is the fullest.
It's probably the Cosmos. They have like 400 people.
400?
Why?
Check it out. Because
Why?
we're the most
on.
active franchise in the.
Hold
let me
on.
see.
Most
We're at-
active franchise.
What are we at? Maybe 3 something.
I see that.
I don't know how to check this, but I run
don't
it
know
on the
either.
server. Ty, my AGM is in the chat. Get me in here.
Give me in here. What do you mean? Give me in here. You're
Get me
here,
the
brother.
numbers. I don't know. We
Draconin
have
has 400.
330. Oh,
400.
no.
I wish I knew how to check
Mhm.
those numbers for.
Speaking
our
of
franchise,
numbers,
but-
though, as we kind of get a little back on track here. So when you're building a team for the offseason, something I didn't really have knowledge of before this season, this being my first season ever as an AGM, that cap space really makes it difficult to
Mhm.
get all the people you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, it does.
Especially when
Every
it moves
time.
every week.
Mhm. It
Oh,
never fails. It will ruin every preset plan that you've set up. Every single one.
Oh, for
Yep.
sure. I was watching one player bouncing back and forth. Back and forth. I'm sitting there going like, come on, man. Like, can you pick a tier, please? So I can make my decision.
Yeah, I signed a player in the preseason, and then after I had already signed them, they got bumped up by a good chunk. I think it was
Nice.
two
Signed
rounds
it
of a jump.
before? Why? Why would you pull the trigger and not wait till it's finalized?
Because
And what if someone else gets them?
yeah, that was mine.
That's crazy.
I also didn't think that was gonna happen. I don't know if I've ever seen them get moved like that much, especially if
The
they've
one
had
really-
previous seasons.
I'm sorry. The one really cool thing about numbers, though, is that if you have multiple people who are a first round pick or the skill level of that in the same tier who you can't afford to keep, you can easily promo one. Shout out my guy Neutrino. Moved him up to rival, even though he was a tier max challenger player. He is exceptional for challenger and still a one much better than the average rival fourth man. And so I get that value as a tier man.
Yeah.
So there are some ways I do definitely agree. Numbers definitely puts you in a lot of really precarious positions.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of ways that you can almost game that system back.
Yeah. I think we did that with a player from rival to veteran.
Nice.
Promoted them up.
Speaking
recently,
of
and it's
gaming the
working well. Or
system,
maybe
sorry, go ahead, Callie. I didn't mean to.
I couldn't remember. I think it was veteran to elite. Same thing. It was
I
Nizzle.
was gonna say though, speaking of gaming the system, I sent T-Sant a breakdown that he didn't take, where we physically, with my cost, could fit me on a rival team with 3 tier min players. I could have been in rival this season.
Yes, I'm sure the admins and numbers committee definitely would have not looked at that at all.
Oh no. I've made some
fits.
really good rival teams that involve a premier player and like maybe a prospect player and 2 contenders in there. Work fine.
God,
The one thing I
are-
will say, my AGM, Ty, TDs, it was former GM of the Cosmos. We just kind of swapped spots. Um, during the preseason, as numbers released and they were far from being locked, he did tell me every week that I would tell him about my updated plans for the teams. He'd go, "It's not worth doing anything. The numbers are gonna screw you over. There's no reason
Yeah.
to build it." And I built it every week, and I had to change it every week.
Yeah.
And so shout out Ty and the guy who lets me, he gives me some veteran advice from the side sometimes.
I mean, you could even have a team built in your mind the day of draft and it still doesn't go the way
Yep.
you want it to.
Yep.
'Cause somebody will
So-
pick them right before you.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys, is there any specific way you go into building a team? Because like this guy boss, he was breaking out spreadsheets, crunching the numbers, doing everything he possibly could, building his teams. Me, I just kind of went in combine and said, "Oh, he's nice, he's not nice." Callie and Rob, is there anything specific you guys go into with? Do you do one or the other, a little bit of both? How do you build your
Spreadsheets,
teams?
yes. Not intense spreadsheets. I don't think I got nearly to the level that Boss probably did.
Bosses was
but
crazy.
combines?
I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
Yeah.
I can show you after, Callie. It's pretty intense.
I think I saw a preview of something that you sent me and it was too much. But we've got some sheets that we use, but combines are quantity over quality. And then we run a lot of private tryouts. And then I'll kind of, tier them out, have lists of, where people fit, if they do fit, who I think would work well together. That's a big thing for me is, do the players play well together? Because somebody could be very talented, but I don't think that they play well with the people I already have. And I'm not going to cut, 3/4 of a team just for one dude, especially not in preseason.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
tryouts are the hone in. You got to watch everything, make sure that you've got the stats right.
Well, it's always interesting to hear another GM's perspective on how they build teams in that. Mine is slightly different in that I try to get 1 or 2 players in every tier that I know I can build around in a successful team. And what that means is acquiring talent first and then making it work after. So for this season in veteran, my entire vet team I had 0 people going into this season. And now they're 9-3 in preseason and looking really, really
Jeez.
solid.
Yeah.
So the way that I do this is I find the talent. That is through either watching replays, attending tryouts, or just watching ball chasing replays of tryouts. People leave their replays on public, so I can just go to other. I can go to the
Draconum.
tryout that other
people.
people post on ball chasing and just watch their tryouts without having to set it up.
I have
And-
never looked at anybody else's replays on ball chasing.
That
So
shouldn't be
I-
much work for me.
I literally had somebody that left their replays up, this Draconum franchise. And I messaged him like, yeah, you guys might want to like figure out how to privatize that
We've
because I
discussed
could
this.
see all that.
It was not me. It was the players.
Either way,
The players, and it doesn't count.
there's always going to be some way to take advantage of that. So once you do that, once I have my 1 or 2 players that I'm looking to build around, I actually watch the replays of other players with them. And I say, how would you think that this guy plays? And because my opinion, while I feel that I'm very good at scouting talent and whatnot, I don't know exactly how they play. I don't know exactly what they're looking for in a teammate. And so what I do is I allow the person who I trust with my team to essentially build the team with me in the process. And whether that's person starts out as being the mechanical player or the wall at the back or whatever it is, they normally know what they need to go with them. If you're mechanical, you know you need a support player. If you're a support player, you know you need your carry, right? And with that, I fill those roles with them, and it generally has a pretty positive result.
Yeah, I think it's important to get the teams that are already the teammates at least that are already there involved with the decision if they want to be. Some of them don't. They don't, they don't care about getting involved in that sort of thing. But if they do care, their opinion takes precedence.
Now,
Yeah.
T-San, I would say for
Yes.
me, for sure, my rule of thumb to you is never have Dr. Skim Milk in the same room as you when the draft is going on, because he will jinx the shit out of it for you mid-draft. Like there was a player we were looking at acquiring in the 4th round, and we're sitting there like, oh, he's gonna fall to us. We're gonna get the one we want. And
He
Dr.
did
Skim Milk's
noopsie?
like, Dr. Skimming's like, oh man, 2 seasons ago, we got sniped in this exact same position by like 3 picks. And then it happened again as soon as he said it.
That's rough, Rob. I'm sure you know with your fantasy football background, you never say that out loud.
Yeah.
You can
You
think it all you
gotta
want. You can't say it under any circumstances.
it's a
It will
superstition
get
thing.
jinxed if you say it out loud.
Yeah.
Every time.
Marbles every season.
Also, since you brought up marbles, I would just like to say that while we keep track of how the Cosmos does this season, that they were actually had 0 picks in the top half of any round.
Okay.
Which
Um,
sounds like
back
Syndicate
half
last
of
year.
all 5. And I just wanted everyone to know about that before we go out and show you guys what's
Quick
going on.
question. Would you prefer I've had this discussion with a couple people.
Mhm.
Either the front or the back is more beneficial than being in the middle. Yes or no?
Yes,
It
I agree.
depends. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, you can go. I was
Oh,
just talking.
I was gonna say it really depends on what talent you're shooting for is.
Mhm.
If you have someone that you know is gonna go super high, obviously you want the front of the draft so you
Yeah.
don't lose somebody who's a known commodity. But if you've got a couple people that really aren't the direct attention of other GMs, the later picks work because then you get serpentine, right? You get pretty much like 2 early
Yeah.
2nd round picks, so it works out really nicely.
I
It's
think
sorry, go ahead.
sorry. With like trading value too, if somebody's got, they got that early pick, they're gonna want to trade back most likely as far as they possibly can. Would be
Right.
my thought process
Yeah.
at least. So I feel like being in the back, even if you can't make the trade happen all the time, you get more potential of doing it versus being like dead smack in the middle.
I mean, I would say though, for that, it really depends on just the draft. What's the talent available? There's always like a threshold of kind of the superstars, and then
Mhm.
players that are good but not quite at that level. And at that point, they're closer
Yeah.
to like the second rounders than the top of the first. It all depends who's available, how many of these star players are, because if you got that number one guy, you obviously want a top pick, but sometimes more beneficial just get 2 great players instead of the one amazing player, superstar, and then someone that's kind of mid.
Piggybacking off that, sorry. I think that no matter what, if you have the early pick, you can always trade it back and just get value, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing is that with the way that the keeper system works, if you are able to find an FA who you think has the talent to be generally I'm speaking about a first rounder FA, someone who's a first round keeper, that is. Um, your life becomes infinitely easier because your off season, then again, you are building around a player you already know that you have. Whereas if you say, so the only top 5 pick that I traded up to was in a tier where myself and my first round keeper scouted and said, if we get this guy, we're probably winning the tier, right? And so I think a
Big
top 5
words.
pick A top 5 pick is where the value lies, and then beyond that, it's kind of just maximize value where you can.
Right. And that's actually what I was going to bring up. If you have somebody, right, like let's say there was a Chally player, free agent that was absolutely goated, and I signed them, and I knew they were going to be my first man, and I had a really early pick, I would try to move back as far as physically possible so that I can acquire as many picks as physically possible. You know what I mean? Like, you got to translate that because it doesn't matter if it's a first round keeper in the beginning of the round or the back end of the round.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, boss. I'm not gonna lie. I really was prepared for you to keep going there. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, I thought you were going to keep going as well.
I was really
No,
prepared for more.
I'm trying not to dominate the
Well,
conversation. I'm trying to
hold
be
on,
nice.
because I may actually slightly disagree with that.
Okay. Now he
Because
disagrees.
well, I just thought about it for a second. And if you have your guy who you know is your first man, or a guy who you believe has the talent to be, let's call it the best player on a team, because first man has like the offensive thing behind it, where it's whatever. Basically, your best player on a team. I think that if you might actually want to trade up as early as possible, because if you can get a duo, a tier breaking duo, who's just, if you have the 2 fastest players in the tier, right? Who's stopping you? If you have the best, I don't know, the 2 best defensive players in a tier, who's scoring a goal on you? If you have just the 2 most talented players, if you can find those and acquire those, then that just puts you in a different stratosphere, because not only do you have that talent, but it's different than what other teams play like. It's a completely, because you're essentially playing, if you're looking at tier max players who are worth it, you're talking about players who are almost the tier above. And so if you have 2 tier max players and a tier min who plays like a third rounder, then you essentially have maybe 2 elite players in vet, right? 2 guys who could hold their own in the tier above, dominating the one below. So it's about, and there is that, your value is capped everywhere except for tier max. Because if they're a 1500 tier max, they could play like a 1585, where if it's a 1460, they're stuck there.
You know, that's really great insight, and I can't wait to hear what Rob in 30 seconds from now says since you just argued against your own original.
I don't think so. It was that if you have that player who you know is incredible, you go get it. So you don't
Right.
just take a random shot on that high pick. If you find someone who's worth it, if you have your carry already.
Well, that's entirely dependent on what's available for picks, you know what I mean, or for players. Because if you
Mhm.
see the player field and you don't believe that anybody is that tier breaker in the draft
Yes.
from what you've
Yes.
seen, it is what it is.
I mean, I will say some GMs need to hear that advice. I saw some picks, some of the drafts where it was like first round, and you're dartboarding there. Okay, if you say
Yeah.
so.
They see something that we don't. I don't know.
I will say, I definitely think that kind of covers everything about building a successful team. We probably could talk about it forever because we just all seem to have such great insight for it. I mean, not pat myself on the back too hard here, but I do want to go ahead and shift into our community shout out for the week. We were given a top list of people from transactions committee that have gone ahead and actually put forth the most transactions this season. And it's by far, there's an MVP here, and it's got to be Bladed Raptor sitting at 257 transactions processed this offseason.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot of transactions.
The next person is 152. So this person is 105 ahead of second place. Like,
Oh
this
my
is
god.
Bladed Raptor putting in absolute work.
I would like to know, do we know what the total number of transactions in the offseason was?
Ooh, I would love
So
to know.
from the listing they showed me, there is at least 6, 7, 8, at least 850 some odd total transactions processed this offseason. There's probably more than that.
So they're doing at least a quarter, though.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
roughly
like,
a
that's
quarter of
nuts.
transactions.
That's nuts. For 32 franchises, however many teams in each, that's crazy. Being on top of it all like that.
Right. And you got to think it's not everything's all in the same spot because we have different locations that we put those transactions in. So they have to be paying attention to a lot of different chats, a lot of different places, putting that information elsewhere. So for sure, definitely for this week, Bladed Raptor is our community shout out, our effective MVP of transactions. Has to be.
You do it.
Yeah, there's no I'd be able to do that.
Oh no.
Like, I feel like 30 would be a good off season for me.
It gets through 30, closes the lives like, yep, time to get back to grinding twos.
God.
Oh my god. But now that we've got our community shout out there going, let's go ahead and get into our final segment of tonight, the All-Star games, and really a couple interesting points around that. T-Sant, I know we talked about this before, but what's your stance on making the All-Star games mandatory?
I feel like that would just never work. Not even like kind of work. No, so I look at it from a stance of a player, right? Let's say I made All-Star, cool, awesome. Like, it'd be a really good feeling. But then they tell me postseason, I've already checked out. I want to go play other games for a bit. I got to show up to this game that means nothing. I'm probably going to troll.
Means nothing. My man, as someone who made an all-star team, I definitely think that so we didn't get to play the all-star rival game. There was kind of some issues in terms of scheduling and trying to get it on stream at first that really prevented us from following through. And it was kind of heartbreaking a little bit because it's the only actual reward that you get from playing super well in a season. You don't get anything else outside of that star by your name. So for me at least, I would have liked to have played it, but I don't know if there's a good happy middle ground outside of just sending.
I feel like you got to say, hey, either the players agree to play it or they don't.
Right.
You can maybe and maybe they could look into getting like a sub for each team. I think expanding the all-star teams to 4 players each is something RC should look at. But it's like, I don't know, maybe if they added like a King of the Hill type thing or a 1v1 tournament, that might be fun. But 6 players, uneven numbers, hence why you move it to 8 also. That can make a 1v1 tournament work, but just like, for the players who, once the season's done, they want to check out, go play other games, not worry about Rocket League until the next season starts, making them show up for something will make them not enjoy it. And that's what the league's all about at the end of the day.
Fair
So,
enough. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
thanks, man. One thing that I think a lot of other leagues do, like professional leagues, is make the All-Star games more fun and All-Star events more fun. And I think if it was made something like that, where it could be a fun but mandatory aspect where they can still kind of mentally check out of trying as hard as they can in competitive Rocket League and then celebrate with their league mates who are going to be going to the next tiers with them, right? Those 3 rival to elite promos might not know each other, but maybe they would have had that all-star game been mandatory, and maybe it would have happened had it been, oh, I don't know, best of 3. One of them is Rumble Drop Shot. One of them is 3v3 hoops. Like you can make them. Those might be terrible ideas, but little challenges, right? Custom games. Maybe have the community vote on what those custom games even are, and then say, you know what? All of you who had a great season, go play these have a good time, get to know the people you're getting promoted with.
Dude, move the mountain. That could be the all-star game. Come on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I think
that'd be
those
cool.
6 players are already the best in the tier. So let them go do something that's not normal Rocket League, that they're not
Mhm.
sweating over, that they're just going to go and do something stupid or funny or fun. That's going to make it at least partially enjoyable.
I'm telling you right now, Kelly, if it's Rumble, I'm sweating.
Okay, well, 0 boost?
It's my best rank, okay? It's all I got.
Are you serious?
I mean, honestly, I do like
Yeah.
that idea a lot. Maybe I think having one regular game would be cool, and then maybe a drop shot, maybe a Rumble, see what the players think about it. Maybe add in, like I said, a 1v1 tournament. Although that would only work if you add a sub to each team. And that still requires each player to show up. But go ahead. You sounded like you had
He
a pretty
sounds
good point.
excited. He's real excited. Sure.
My bad. Did you guys, are you familiar with the Gamers Ready tournament that just occurred?
No idea.
It was essentially professional Rocket League teams playing a 3v3, a 2v2, and a 1v1.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, imagine you have your all-star teams vote on who plays those games for each division. Best of 3. Okay,
Yeah.
who do we want to send out in this 1v1? Who do we think out of the 3 of us who are the best players in the tier? And then you create the best 1v1, best 2v2, and best 3v3 that the tier could have.
Yeah. I've done
That's
things
an
like
idea.
that, and it's been very fun.
And the MVP could be the captain who sets lineups potentially.
But I do want to call back here real quick. Callie, that
Yeah.
is in fact my highest rank by far.
This guy just wants
I-
to flex his rank.
Yeah,
He
that's
just
I
wants to flex
peaked-
his rank.
I
crazy.
peaked into GC3 for Rumble, thank you.
Yeah. I'm
Rumble?
1600 in threes.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Hey, what's your threes rank, boss? What's your standard threes rank?
Ooh. Oh,
As
that-
of today, it should be GC1 Div 1.
Okay, well,
Nice.
all right. You're still-
Really reaching for the skies.
You
Yeah.
betcha.
I think my MMR is like 500 in Rumble, so
Oh, it's so much fun. It's like
You
Mario Kart, but with soccer.
I can't even
hit-
remember the last time I played Rumble.
I hit number 8 on the drop shot leaderboards a while ago.
Ew.
GC2
Have
Div
issues.
4.
You sweaty.
Oh, it's on my
Both
Steam
these
profile.
guys just
My name at the time was Paige Beckers, who's a UConn women's basketball player.
huh.
Fun fact. She's a bucket. Go check
How
her
do
out.
you put yourself through that?
Nah, shut up, Paige. She's goaded.
Swear. Shout out LSU women's basketball, by the way. They're forming a super team. Haley Van Lith is going there.
I know nothing.
Understatement.
I've got no knowledge on that.
That's fair.
But I think that's the one thing that's really tough though. Getting back, I guess, on topic. The All-Star game, I personally think it also needs to stick to Mondays and Wednesdays. I know there's
Yes,
other things
100%.
going on, but the
100%.
whole like putting it out to a vote to whoever wants to be when, it didn't seem very rigid in structure. It definitely felt a little bit more open for failure versus if they were to just come out and say, "Hey, you're an all-star. We need to run your game on Monday. Can you make sure you're here Monday, same bat time?" And if they go, "Well, I can't be there Monday," it's like, well, my man, RSC's Mondays, RSC's Wednesdays. You got to
Yeah.
be available.
And I mean, go ahead, Callie.
I think it hasn't been like when players try to organize things themselves, it's a great effort, but 90% of the time it just falls through for one reason or another. I think I've had
Mhm.
2 seasons now where the All-Stars were trying to get something going and it just never happened. And they had like
Yeah.
the whole plan and then it just falls. Because I would like to see it happen in some capacity or another, but I think the time is important, the day is important, making sure that you've got maybe 1 or 2 alternatives ready and set up that have already agreed to be there on that time if it doesn't show up. 'Cause
I
you know
mean,
that's going to happen.
One thing they could do is, do it like as soon as the championships are over. Like I think usually Rival and Vet is the last championship streamed. So let's say this year, I think it was on a Wednesday, was the Rival Vet finals. Next Monday, do amateur prospect, maybe contender all-star games in a stream on one night. It could start at like 9 o'clock because there's no other games. Then that Wednesday, I forget what the lower tiers are, but like Challenger, Rival, Vet. I think I've hit all the tiers. Maybe even Elite, get 4 tiers in if you're feeling bold.
I think
Master and Prem players probably aren't showing up, so we won't worry about those guys.
the only part of that kind of causes the issue is we would have to change the way that the end of season stream is done. Because that happens a week after, I think, usually the last finals,
Yeah.
when you announce all of these all-stars and MVP stuff. So it'd be hard to run it immediately after, unless they change the way that that's done.
And it definitely needs to be scheduled out as well, because something I noticed this time, T-Sant, being a caster, you know this, but without really being given a heads up in advance, it's kind of hard to schedule yourself to be available to cast.
Yeah,
Not to mention getting a producer available, somebody who's going to be there to run the stream.
that's way
can-
harder.
It's way harder because there's not a lot of people that want to be that unsung hero behind the desk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for sure, quick shout out to the producers. Gotta let them know. Thank you for keeping the season running on the stream.
Who's our producer?
Our producer is Mr. Hannon Grenade.
Yeah, who's behind the
Founding-
scenes right now? Let's give him a
founding
shout
member.
out. Woo! That's what I was saying.
He has made all these overlays by himself.
Yep.
Give him a round of applause. They look
Oh, for
great.
sure.
Phenomenal.
But speaking of Mr. Hannon, he could back me up if he was here. We had all 6 All-Star people in a lobby in this wonderful Discord called The Pre-Jump, and we were just sitting here hanging out, running 6-mans, waiting for it to go live. But because it's put up to a vote and we really didn't know what the day was going to be until like 2 days before, we couldn't find a producer. We had 2 casters ready, couldn't quite get a producer, but there's no rigidity to the scheduling. So those producers have lives. And, you know, it's kind of tough to get everything lined up in such a short notice.
Thank you.
What was that, Rob?
Well, another thing. So my major MVP vet, whatever it's called now, All-Star season. I actually didn't like. There was no facilitation of this to the point where I like just didn't even know it was a thing. And I was really disappointed. And so I'm not exactly sure how it's supposed to be set up, but I just didn't know it existed, and I wonder if other people also deal with that.
Yeah,
I knew I was
don't
an
remember
all-star,
pings.
but
I don't remember
yeah.
seeing any pings for it.
Exactly. And so at that point, how am I supposed to know that it's my responsibility to set it up? I think some RSC hand holding through that process could be very, very beneficial as well.
Yeah. Callie, you brought up a good point about restructuring the end of the season with like the end of the season stream and all that. I mean, you're someone who's heavily involved in this league. Would you rather see the end of the season stream, or if the players are on board, like a night full of 3 or 4 tiers worth of all-star festivities?
I don't know, because I like. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I like the reveal of like every tier's all-star and every tier's MVP and then franchise. I really like it being its own separate thing instead of just a thing thrown in chat saying, here's your all-stars for the season.
Uh-huh.
If obviously I had to choose, I don't know, because I haven't seen the all-stars yet. I haven't seen that aspect of things where I've seen the end of the season show. So I watch a lot of Rocket League. I play a lot of Rocket League. I think it would be more investing for watchers to watch the All-Star games, but I think having that stuff actually announced to the league as a whole means more for the players rather than just a screenshot of something thrown into a chat somewhere. Because I think that's how it used to be done, if I remember correctly. It was kind of just, it was very minimal. There wasn't an end of the season show. It was just kind of, we're done. We played our last final. Here's the results of spreadsheets. There it is.
I mean, so do you think that's something that could just be held like after the All-Star games, or even yet maybe built into the All-Star games? You have your tiers playing. You can shout out the champion of that tiers on the night they're playing. You then reveal the All-Stars awards winners, whatever it is. Then you have your All-Star festivities next night, next tiers. More of the same.
Yeah, obviously people can't keep a secret. It would
I think
be
that's
really
a great
nice
idea.
if
Admins,
people
write
can
it
know
down.
that they were an all-star beforehand while the entire league doesn't know. That would never happen because people can't keep secrets. Duh.
Yo.
But then you could go into it and be like, here's our reveal of the all-stars. Let's watch them play their games.
That would be so dope. Casting it, it's like we don't know who's gonna, like, nobody else knows who's gonna be besides the casters, right? And you just, that first 5-minute game really isn't even them playing. It's just us announcing, getting them on the field, like, over here on this side from whatever the
I mean, even still, like, you look at any major sports league, they announce their all-stars early, kind of because they have to, obviously. But still, I think in the same way, we'd have to announce them because, like, if I get announced as an all-star, I'm at least telling a few people, like,
exactly.
you got a DL, but I got
I did it.
I got all-star. Like,
Yeah, nobody's
Dude.
gonna
I
keep
don't
that.
think that would take away from it of still announcing it on the stream because not everyone's reading pings in the RC channel. Who knows
Right.
how many people have their mentions on Discord muted?
It was
Like-
tough, by the way, keeping that a secret.
What?
I knew who the All Stars were going to be because I was told that I'm going to be the
Who's
end of
leaking?
season.
Someone's
you know.
leaking.
I wasn't leaking nothing. I was just because I was the end of season on the end of season stream, the guy announcing who the All Stars were and the MVPs. I was given the list, and I'm looking over the list like, I could see who it is.
But
Gotta keep that a secret.
yeah, I think they should just, announce it and then you do your end of season award show built into the All-Star festivities. I think that will make people more invested. They'll guaranteed be on stream. And like I said, you get that fourth player for each All-Star sub. Make it 8 All-Stars or 4 for each conference. So if someone misses, you still got a backup option, and they were still a great player. I mean, being top 8 instead of top 6, it's not a big difference, They're still going to be top of the tier.
Still worth it.
So, RC admins, I know you're listening. Something to think about.
As we're talking about All Stars, me on display, our people's champ in chat asks if we think All Stars a popularity contest. Donald, a
Ooh.
veteran of the league, agrees. I also agree. And I think that there could be things done to decrease the amount of popularity contest that it is, like adding more numbers or where people rank in the league for their various statistics on the ballot. Maybe this person is first in their tier in points per game. Maybe this person is also third in assists per game. Right? Those are some really cool statistics that would give people some framework for voting for All-Star and MVP.
So Rob, what you're saying is maybe along with the All-Star and MVP voting, they should add some stats along with it.
I knew it was
I-
coming. I knew it. As soon as you said it, Rob, I
think
could
it's a
just see
great
I could
idea.
just see the gears running in T-San's head because we talked about this like 2 weeks ago.
Maybe someone made a serious suggestion stating that. I don't know who that is, but I swear
Is that
I
in
saw
the
someone
serious
mention it.
suggestion channel?
It's
I think
easily
I
the
read it and
longest.
supported it actually
It's
already.
easily the longest serious suggestions I've ever
Yeah.
seen. It was like 460 posts.
It's
was
a
wild.
phenomenal. I saw what a lot of people said about that, and I also just want to continue that discussion here right now for those who may not have read it. But I 100% agree. I think that that would provide so. You look at any MVP contest, right? In basketball, it's always, oh, he leads the league in points per game. Oh my goodness, he leads the league in assists per game. He's the first player since 1984 to do it, to lead in both, right? That's really cool. Imagine now we have someone. I am not going to name drop anybody. I had a player who broke the points record and goals record for his tier and didn't win MVP. It's totally cool, totally cool. But I think if people understood the magnitude
God.
of a season that this player had, voting results may have actually gone differently. If people realized that, oh my goodness, this guy had more goals than anyone in this tier has ever had. This person had more points than anyone in this tier has ever had in the 17 seasons of RSC. More goals in 64 games than anyone ever. I think that needs to be rewarded, and people don't know about stuff like that.
I mean, the stats aren't easy to look up. Like, you go on the
They're not.
website, and it's
Yeah.
there. And one, not everyone's going to the website, right? Not everyone's
Yes.
going to be that invested. There's nothing you can do about that. It is what it is. But even on the website, like, granted, we're not paying people to make some crazy website. We got our guys doing the absolute best they can, but it's not the easiest to navigate.
Yeah.
And that is what it is. No fault of anyone. I don't know how to make websites. I don't know how to do any of that.
Swear.
I ain't gonna speak on none of that. But it's not the easiest to navigate, and you can't guarantee all these players who are just in the league for some fun. At the end of the day, it's what the RC is all about. They're not gonna scroll through stats of 6, 7, 8 different players to make an educated guess. If they don't know the stats of anyone, ooh, funny name. Ooh, I know this guy. Voting for them.
This guy's been in the league for 5 seasons. I remember he was an all-star last season. Let me vote for him.
Yeah, like.
So T-San, that's actually pretty easy to automate though. So using the VLOOKUP tool in Google Sheets, you can actually just type in somebody's name, and as long as you use the VLOOKUP tool
Boss.
next to it,
Boss, let me make my point. Let me make my point, boss. Stop it. Stop using logic. Enough. I didn't ask for sound reasoning.
I think
I
regardless, the point that you don't know how to do it, as simple as it is still in support.
I think the tough part though is at what point do you draw the line between, oh, we're going to show like some stats versus we're going to spin a narrative to pretty much sell the MVP voting for one or two people. Because when you're talking about, oh, well, he scored more points than anybody else ever in the tier, or he did this, this, and this, at that point in time, you're not really putting forth an unbiased, MVP voting ballot. Now you're saying, hey, this is why you really should vote for this person, and these are all of the reasons. You know what I mean? It's kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
So I think that's fair. So then maybe you don't say, um, okay, this is more points than anyone else ever. You just show total points, total goals, or like points per game, right? Goals per game, assists per game, shots per game, wins, losses.
I was
Right? You
gonna
can
say
have
team
some.
record for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so there are ways to standardize that to not push an agenda, but even by having those numbers, you can quantify these players' seasons better. Oh my gosh, he had
Yeah.
30 more goals than anybody. Oh my gosh, wait, this guy had 7,000 more points than the next player? That's crazy. And people
Right.
don't know those things. So just having some numbers to compare their options, I think it provides a lot of value.
It would definitely provide value. I just want to avoid like, hey, this is the
Yeah.
greatest thing for this because of the reasoning of, is that translating to wins? Is that person directly making their team better and actually, creating a winning culture? And I say that with the fact of, you can score the most goals of anybody, but if you don't make, like, let's say you don't make the playoffs, right?
You
You
don't make
score.
ballot if you don't make playoffs.
That's not true. I didn't make
For
playoffs the
for
season that
MVP
I made
for
ballot.
MVP ballot.
I'm the solar MVP.
Yeah,
You have to
From
have
MVP.
boss was in
a
fact an MVP ballot.
I
greater
was
than
solar MVP, and I did not make. We did not make playoffs.
So
some formula or whatever that.
There is a formula for it. Give me 1 second.
so
Yeah.
Callie, what are your thoughts on it? Should stats be included?
No, because I feel like it does make the bias a thing, but also there's a bias because you may or may not know a person. It is both a popularity contest and it is not, because somebody's not going to be on that ballot if they're not that good. And I think when you're playing in a game, somebody may not be some crazy stats person, but they can be the problematic player to play against on the field. They might not be putting up the most stats in any capacity, but they're the ones that you were like, oh, that person really did not feel good to play against. That sucked. I don't think there will ever be a time that popularity does not, or knowledge of a person does not play a role.
I mean, the
And to be
players
honest,
could
I
just
think
say, screw the stats, you know?
Rob,
yeah,
you
I
looked it
think
up
it's also a
first.
good thing for
Yeah.
people to be active in the server and with their franchise and stuff like that. I think to be an all-star for the tier, you should probably talk to somebody.
You have to be over 500 or make the playoffs. So you have to win more games than you lose.
Yeah, and I think we were 33 and 31 at the end of the.
Oh, close.
Jeez.
We
Yeah.
were real close, but that
So
was.
you can't put up empty numbers because you have to win more games than you lose. You can't be that empty stats if you're
Yeah.
winning more games.
But that's where I'm saying, like, let's say you score. I'm just going to use for simple sake of numbers. You
Mhm.
score 100 goals.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you score, like, and I think 100 goals is a pretty high number regardless, because you play 64 games, so 100
Yeah.
you're
No,
averaging
most tiers have never had someone score 100 goals.
right. Like, let's say you score 100 goals in a season, your
Mhm.
team barely makes it into playoffs, and you
Mhm.
get eliminated first round. But
Yeah.
a player who has like a mid 70s SP, they're a decent shooter, they facilitate the ball rather well, they have a lot of saves, but they have the best record as a team, and they
Mhm.
go on to dominate the playoffs and potentially win the championship. that player, in my personal opinion, yes, they're not setting groundbreaking numbers, but they're at the same time they're winning. It translates, and yes, they may not. I mean, I guess that's where what is most valuable. Are we going to quantify it with just raw numbers, or are we going to quantify it with how well it translates to winning?
Well, that person needs to win more than, say, 5 more games than the other one for that to matter. And in a lot of cases, that happened in this season of RSC, I believe. There was a 5-game win disparity, if I remember correctly, and a 40-something SBV disparity. And so if you want to talk about contributing to winning, sure, right? Like 5 more games, you get to the playoffs as the 3 seed instead of the 6 seed, right? Like, is that providing value, or if you are scoring every single goal for your team for an entire season and dragging them to the playoffs? I I mean, it's not like one team had the if you contribute to the most winningest season of all time and don't put up that many numbers, absolutely. But I find it hard to think that you can do that without putting up incredible numbers. Your numbers, if you have the best season in the league, are going to be pretty good, probably.
For sure. I just, in my personal opinion, subjectively, I view it as the best player from the best team. You know, and it's one of the things, like you say, like this player dragged their teammates. As the quote unquote best player, were they not elevating their teammates to get more contribution out of them? Or was it simply they were just so bad that they couldn't? Like, I guess I
So,
don't know what that
Yeah.
so you
background.
had mentioned that it's best player on best team, and every major we're going to go back to the NBA here, really tries to avoid that. If you look at the last however many MVPs, they were not the best record in the NBA, and they did put up the best numbers. If you look at Joel Embiid this year, you look at Nikola Jokic the last couple of years, you look at Giannis, you look at Russell Westbrook, you look at all of these players who are winning MVP, it's because it's providing the most value. And generally, if you're the best team, that means that you have a supporting cast.
Yeah.
That means that you are the best team as a whole. And I am not saying that the best player can't be on the best team or that they can't provide the most value, but I think to say without a doubt that MVP should go to the best player on the best team is a little bit short-sighted.
Well, to play devil's advocate for that, all those MVP winners, aside from Westbrook, were all, I believe, top 3 seeds within their respective
Jokic was
conference.
a 6th seed last season.
That's right. The Nuggets were a 6 seed. All right, you
Yep.
got me there. So
I do.
two exceptions. But you go back the last, 15, 20 years, how many times has that happened?
It's
More
also
than
like
ever
if you
before.
look at Jokic's
True.
win shares from last season, though,
Yeah.
his win shares were
Yeah. Now we're just
disgustingly
talking about
high.
advanced metrics
Yeah.
and numbers. You are playing that the numbers are the reason you should win.
No,
Yeah,
And
back,
I'm
circle
saying that
circle back.
there
'Cause we definitely
is
got a little
yeah,
off topic.
hold
you
on.
just okay.
I'm saying that
What?
metrics
I have
and
no
stats
idea.
metrics and
we're
stats
definitely
are
getting a little off topic.
entirely subjective.
Yeah.
You can, yes, look at a number and say this person is guaranteed they've put up the most stats, but I don't think that automatically qualifies them as the MVP.
I agree with that. I don't think either or is automatically the MVP. I do think that there's a balance between the two, and that's why it's such a fascinating discussion, and how I think we can genuinely both be correct and disagree on this.
Actually, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Totally be the only
There is
one.
good middle
Yeah.
ground.
But
I don't think I've
it's
ever thought about it.
because there's a really fascinating spectrum of, oh my goodness, is this person putting up these numbers because they have to, or is this person putting up these numbers because they're selfish? Are they stat padding? Is this person over here putting up no numbers because of the way they enable their teammates? And so it is a very fascinating discussion, and I honestly think that
So
trying to do it with RSC is a flawed process because
Yeah.
as viewers, will never watch 64 games of uh, any tier and say this is why this person deserves it over that.
well,
Yeah.
isn't the MVP voting for the most part? They're all stars already.
Yeah. For the most
Yes.
part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and all-star voting for the most part is pretty straightforward, right? Like you have to be top 8 SBV.
I have it up.
With
All
that
Star
win
is top 8
percentage as well.
SBV in conference, top 12 if tier has no conferences with at least 60% of their games played.
Yeah, so there's like, I mean, for at least all-star, it's pretty straightforward. You have to be top 8.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
the MVP pool traditionally reflects the All-Star. I don't think I saw anybody that won MVP that wasn't an All-Star.
I do not want to get into particular player cases, but I
Just
think
if it
that
happened, like
I think there may have been one.
Okay.
I have a sheet up right now. There was no, they were still top 8. Never mind.
Okay.
So I mean that at least
Yeah,
fairly
yeah.
decent.
I don't think I've ever thought about it, to be honest. I hate to say it. I was just kind of like, yeah, those are the All-Stars. Cool.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
fair.
yeah, that's a fair thing though. A lot of players are probably thinking that those are the All-Stars. Cool, because at the end of the day, we're a fun league, you know.
Yes,
You
If
don't
there was
have to
money
be-
involved, if there was more intense stakes at hand there, I think it deserves a really in-depth conversation of if it's popularity, if it's stats.
$5 Visa gift card. There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you get a little star next to your name.
Yeah.
I like
which
my star.
pretty
It's a nice
cool.
star.
It's pretty
But,
cool.
like,
I don't have
it's
a
a
star.
star.
Wish I had one of those.
But again, I just want to reiterate that I think we can all have genuinely decently different perspectives on this, and they can all actually be correct, and that's why it's such a fascinating discussion.
For sure.
Probably also the reason that it's never been changed.
Yes. Yeah.
If it ain't totally broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally broke.
Focus on the things that are.
Yeah.
You get a roll,
I'll let you know.
I think, for MVP.
Yeah.
Do you get a
For
roll for
All-Star?
All-Star forever?
I think
No,
so.
I didn't. You do not. I think it's maybe
No?
1 or 2 seasons afterwards. Yeah, I don't have mine anymore.
Maybe that's something they should switch then, because maybe that's the something they should look into. Like, hey, make All-Star a little more important, make players care a little more.
Yeah.
If you have that, because having the star just for one season, it's like you earn that. That doesn't go away.
Mhm.
Gonna look like a college football helmet after
You
like
don't-
6 seasons with
Yeah,
the amount of
yeah.
All-Stars we're gonna be
You don't
collecting.
stop becoming an All-Star just because
Season passes. Yeah.
you're it's another season.
I think that's probably the reason why they don't, is because some people really would accumulate a ridiculous amount of stars, and that would be a headache to look at.
How many stars can you really get though that quickly?
Well,
Because if you're an elite, I don't know, it's hard to get. Are you gonna get more than 3 All-Stars? Really? I don't know. You're an All-Star and amateur, and now you skip contender and go to prospect, and then let's say that somehow you're an All-Star there because you're improving extremely quickly, and then what? You probably double promo again because the lower
Yeah.
tiers really do have a lot of double promos.
I
Then you
will
go to
say,
rival.
I think this is maybe a topic we could probably go for another 20 minutes on. That maybe.
Yeah.
Chat, we could talk about next week on the podcast. Tune in every Saturday at 8:30.
Before
Nice.
we go for the night, though, I do want to give a shout out and a really big thank you for the community for following us. That way, you're here present every week. We are going to go live next week at 8:30. But outside of that, Mr. T Cent, do you have any parting words?
I'm happy to be here, guys. That's all I got. That's it for me.
Got very angry roommates, apparently.
Oh no.
You're doing important things. You got a cute cat in your room. Just show them the cat. They'll forgive.
He's dead asleep.
Alrighty, well, I hate to end it, but we're kind of getting deep into a new subject here. We'll go ahead. We'll probably pick it back up next week. Same bat time, same bat plays. Please tune back in for the pre-jump. Stay frosty.
Every time you look into my eyes, I know I'm yours. tried. I don't know if you really feel like I do. Losing my objective slowly out of sight. Just tell me how to make it